I'm going to tell you like my dad told me when I first got into lawn care. If you're going to take care of your lawn, you're going to have to deal with weeds too. It's just part of it. So deal with it. A lawn and weeds go together like peanut butter and jelly, like peas and carrots, like lamb and tuna fish. You get the picture. Look, if you're gonna take care of your lawn, you're gonna have to mess with some weeds too. It just is part of the game. So let's talk about some of the most common weeds that I have dealt with in my lawn, and I don't really deal with much of them anymore. I appreciate you being here. We're gonna go over 6 weeds that I can pretty much guarantee you're going to see in your lawn at some point or another. Let's talk about the first one, Poa annua. Look, Poa annua is the right way to say it, but down where I'm from, we call it Poana. Poana, it's an easy way to say it, and that's how I'm going to say it from now on. Poana is an annual bluegrass that will start popping up in your lawn throughout the winter time and in the spring. And you may be thinking, if you're like me, you got Bermuda. The first time I saw it, I was like, what is going on here? Like, this is Bermuda grass. It's supposed to be dormant this time of year. And then all of a sudden I got this green coming up. I had no clue that you could have other grasses in your lawn that would come up during the winter time and just confuse the heck out of me. Well, Poana does, okay? And it is not something that you're going to kill with a post-emergent herbicide. You are going to want to keep it from coming up in the first place, and you do that with a pre-emergent herbicide application in the fall. All right, the second one, and this one was just a complete infestation in my old lawn. The first time I ever took care of a yard, and it was completely covered in white clover. Now, everybody used to tell me, man, your lawn looks so good, because guess what? It was so green, but it wasn't green with Bermuda grass. It was covered in white clover. And when that stuff would get wet and you would mow it, I mean, it would just stick to the wheels and get all over the concrete surfaces, and I hate it. Now, some people like it. It's a nice ground cover. It stays green pretty much all the time now. In the hot part of the summer, it will start to die off, but it's really identifiable by those little white flowers that pop up. And here's the good news about the white clover. A post-emergent herbicide, I like to use Spectracide, a weed stop for lawns, plus crabgrass killer. And I use the Spectracide Pre-Emergent, and that's the one with the crabgrass preventer, the granules. I use both those Spectracide products, but when I had the bad clover infestation, I used the post-emergent weed killer and knocked out pretty much all of it after just 1 or 2 applications in one season. Never really had a problem with it ever since. Here's number 3, dandelion. Now, you know what dandelions are. Your kids love to pick them. They got the yellow flowers on top. They come up in the springtime, and they're just not the prettiest of weeds if you're a lawn fan. Now, they're one of those that when it gets hot again, it's going to die out in the summer, but you can shoot those with a post-emergent herbicide. Trying to pick those things, it's really tough because their tap roots on those go really, really, really deep. So it's hard to get a dandelion out by hand. But if you're not going to kill them with a weed killer, guess what? When it gets hot, they're gone. Number 4, the dreaded. Now, I'm telling you, you're going to hate it when you got it. There's good news and bad news with this one, and it's crabgrass. The good news is you can prevent it with a pre-emergent herbicide. Also good news, you can kill it with a post-emergent weed killer. But here's the key on crabgrass. You've got to kill that stuff when it's little bitty baby crabgrass and you just start seeing it come up. Because if you don't and it matures at all, it is going to get strong and tough, and you are going to have the dangest time killing it with a weed killer. And pretty much by that point, you're just going to start living with it through that season and have to prevent it before the next season. And you sure don't want to let it grow enough to go to seed, because then you'll have an even bigger problem on your hands the next year, because crabgrass is just a beast. But I will tell you that when I was infested with white clover, I also had crabgrass all over the place, and I got rid of it. Now, I did a lot of hand picking, when it was little baby crabgrass as well, and that helped control it. But it wasn't until I started using the pre-emergent herbicides that the crabgrass really didn't become a problem in my lawn. Number 5, after I got rid of the clover, I started seeing this other clover type looking weed coming up in my lawn, and I thought, dang, I thought I got rid of the white clover. But it wasn't white clover. It was another one called oxalis. You've maybe heard it called yellow wood sorrel. It kind of looks like a clovery weed, but it doesn't have the white flowers like the white clover does. It has these little yellow flowers that pop up, and it's kind of pretty as well. The kids loved it, and they thought, oh, let's go pick those. And that's the good part about it. If you don't want to use a post-emergent herbicide to kill it, you can pick it by hand. It has really shallow roots, and you can just pull it up in clumps. Comes up really, really easily. But I struggled with that in my lawn for a little bit, and every year it seemed like I would have a little bit come back in spots, but I would just go out before it got out of hand, and I would start picking it, and bam, done for the season. Because I try to not use a weed killer as much as often, because the best way to control a weed in your lawn is just removing it by your hands. Get a bucket of some sort, go out there, pick it, throw it away, make sure you don't spread the seeds across the lawn, and just get rid of it that way. And then your headaches will go away much sooner rather than later, and it's therapeutic work if you ask me. So picking, okay, we're on the topic of picking the yellow wood sorrel, the oxalis. Well, let's get to our 6th and final weed that this might be a hot topic for some of y'all when it comes to picking, and that is yellow nutsedge. And you're going to hear people over and over and over scream to the mountaintops, never pick the yellow nutsedge, because when you pick it, its tubers underground, blah, 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 will make it spread even worse if you pick it. Never, under any circumstances, pick the yellow nutsedge. So what is the yellow nutsedge? You'll start seeing it come up in the spring when it starts getting warm and wet in spots, and it's just these little glossy looking things that start poking up out of the ground. It might be in little clusters of it. Well, guess what I do when I see those little clusters, or even one? I pick it. Oh my gosh, he picks yellow nutsedge. Well, let me tell you why I pick yellow nutsedge. Well, first and foremost, I've always picked it, and I've never had an infestation of it. It is one of those that, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's next to impossible to prevent with a pre-emergent herbicide. Now, the Spectracide post-emergent that I use does have the ingredient in it to actually kill the yellow nutsedge, but again, I try to use those as little as possible. So I've found that if I pick it when they're little baby nutsedges and they don't have time to like develop those tubers and develop too many leaves above ground. I think it's like 6 leaves. Once it's 6 leaves and beyond, it's already developed those tubers, and that's when you really don't want to pick it. But if I pick them early enough, when they're little baby plants, they haven't developed enough, and anytime you pick those things and you're robbing them of sunshine and soil and all the nutrients and things they need to survive, well, guess what? If you stay on it, you stay regular, you keep going out in those areas where you're noticing them and picking them, then all of a sudden they just magically kind of stop coming up because they can't survive if they're not above ground long enough. So that's just something I've learned through experience and not listening to everything I hear online, that if I pick them, it's not the end of the world. Everything will be okay. And I've read a little bit of something, some literature about what I just described, and that seems to support what I have found in my own experiences. So those are the 6 weeds that I have kind of dealt with in my lawn in the past ever since I got a good pre-emergent routine going on. I've never really had a weed problem, but I can tell you, even if you're on a good pre-emergent routine, you are going to deal with weeds. It is not a fail-safe, or what do you call that, foolproof system to prevent weeds. Sometimes some will slip through the cracks. Those are the ones that I have had either before or after a pre-emergent. But I can tell you one thing, I don't let weeds bother me anymore because I know they can all be taken care of. All right, my friends, that's going to do it for this edition of Budget Lawns. I appreciate you joining me as always, and we'll see you next time.